The discovery. The universe was vast, filled with countless planets, species, and civilizations. Every species had its strengths. Some were intelligent, some were strong, and some had technology that could destroy entire planets. But among all the species in the galaxy, humans were different. They had a strange ability, something no other species fully understood. They could sleep. Not just rest, like other beings. They could go into deep sleep, completely shutting down their bodies for hours. No alien species in the universe did this, and for thousands of years, nobody cared. Sleep was seen as a weakness. But now, the galaxy was about to learn the truth. A strange discovery. Dr. Kellner stood inside the research lab of the Solarian Empire, staring at the large containment pod in front of him. Inside the pod, a human was sleeping peacefully. The sight disturbed him. "This is unnatural," he muttered. His assistant, Zurich, looked at the screen displaying the human's brain activity. It was calm, almost too calm. Zurich frowned. "They do this every day?" he asked. Dr. Kellner nodded. "Yes, every human sleeps like this. They shut their bodies down completely." Zurich shivered. The Solarians never slept. They entered a resting state, but they were always conscious. If someone tried to attack them, they would wake up immediately. But these humans, they became completely helpless. "Why did the High Council order this study?" Zurich asked. "Why do we care about their sleep?" Dr. Kellner turned to him, his green eyes filled with something close to fear. "Because there have been incidents." Zurich's skin turned pale. "Incidents?" Kellner walked to a control panel and pressed a button. A hologram appeared, showing footage from a surveillance ship. The video showed a human prisoner inside a high-security alien lab. The prisoner had been sedated and was sleeping. The alien scientists were discussing how to test his endurance. Then, suddenly, the human woke up. For a moment, nothing happened. The scientists didn't even notice. But then, the human's eyes glowed faintly. His breathing changed. The room's lights flickered. The energy readings on the screen started spiking uncontrollably. Then, in an instant, the cameras went dark. The video cut off. "What happened?" Zurich asked. Dr. Kellner exhaled. "We don't know. But when we reached the lab, everyone was gone. The human had escaped. And no one remembers what happened." Zurich felt a chill crawl down his spine. "That's impossible." Dr. Kellner shook his head. "It's not just one case. We found similar incidents on 3 different planets. Every time, a human woke up, and something changed. More than just sleep." Zurich looked at the sleeping human in the containment pod. He seemed normal, harmless. But now Zurich knew better. What if? He hesitated. What if sleep is not a weakness? What if it's their evolution? Dr. Kellner remained silent. Zurich stared at the brain activity monitor again. Then his heart stopped. The readings were changing. The human was waking up. The pod's glass vibrated slightly. The air became heavy. The lights flickered. Kellner's eyes widened. No, this is too soon." He pressed emergency controls to inject the human with more sedative, but the screen flashed red. "System error." The human's eyes snapped open. For a moment, the entire lab became silent. Then, alarms started blaring. Zurich grabbed his head as a strange pressure filled the room. His vision blurred. The air felt thick, as if invisible hands were pressing down on him. The human sat up slowly. He looked around and smiled. "You should not have woken me up." The pod's glass shattered. The energy in the room exploded, throwing Zurich and Kellner to the ground. Zurich struggled to breathe. He looked up, shaking. The human was standing, his eyes glowing faintly. Then, without a sound, he vanished. The alarms continued to scream. Scientists ran into the room, shouting orders. But Zurich could only stare at the empty pod, his heart pounding. The High Council was right to be afraid. Humans were not weak. They were not helpless. They were the universe's best-kept secret. And now, that secret was out. The fear spreads. The High Council chamber was silent. A deep, unsettling silence. It was the kind that settled in when powerful beings were afraid. A hologram flickered in the center of the circular room, displaying security footage from Research Lab Theta 9. The video feed was corrupted, glitching, distorting, breaking apart. But the council members had seen enough. A human had woken up. And the entire facility had disappeared. No bodies, no wreckage, just emptiness. Supreme Chancellor Varric, leader of the Xelarian Empire, exhaled sharply. This cannot be ignored. His deep, metallic voice echoed through the chamber. They are evolving, said another council member, his blue-tinted skin pale with fear. Every time they sleep, they become stronger. Chancellor Varric stood, his six-fingered hand gripping the table. If this continues, they will surpass us all. A murmur spread across the room. Surpass the Xelarians? Impossible. They were one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, ruling over hundreds of planets. And yet, in the past month, 3 military labs had vanished. Each one had contained a sleeping human. Each time, the same result. When the human woke up, the facility was erased from existence. Varric clenched his jaw. We have one chance. We must eliminate them before they wake up. The chamber filled with whispers. The extinction of an entire species. Even for the Xelarians, this was extreme. A young officer, Commander Zurich, stood up. This is wrong, he said firmly. We have studied humans for centuries. They are not conquerors. They have never started a war. If they are evolving, we must understand it, not fear it. Varric's glowing eyes locked onto him. You are naive, Commander. Zurich didn't flinch. We fear what we don't understand. Varric raised a hand, and the hologram changed. This time, it showed a human warship, but something was wrong. The ship was not moving. It was floating completely still in deep space. No signals, no power. Dead. This vessel belonged to the Earth Alliance. Varric said. We intercepted its distress call. He pressed a button. A transmission played. At first, there was only static. Then, a voice. Weak. Terrified. This is Captain Rylan. If anyone can hear this, don't let them sleep. The message cut off. Silence filled the chamber again. Varric turned to Zurich. Still think they are harmless. Zurich hesitated. His instincts screamed at him. This was wrong. The Xelarians were afraid, but fear made people act irrationally. Something else was happening. Something no one understood. A mission in the dark. Despite Zurich's protests, the Council made their decision. An elite strike team was sent to Earth. Their mission: capture a sleeping human, bring them to Xelarian Prime for study. If necessary, eliminate all threats. A fleet of stealth ships cloaked themselves and entered Earth's orbit. The team descended silently, their armor blending into the night. They moved carefully through a human city, using advanced scanners to locate a perfect target. In one of the high-rise buildings, they found him, a human male, asleep in his apartment. Commander Zurich's hands trembled as he watched the mission feed from the warship. Something felt wrong. He had seen humans before, but this one felt different. The team leader's voice came through the comms. Target located. Preparing for extraction. A silent pulse of energy swept over the sleeping human. A paralysis field. He wouldn't wake up. Or so they thought. The moment they touched him, the mission feed cut to static. Every screen inside the warship went dark. Then, for the first time in Xelarian history, a warship screamed. It wasn't mechanical failure. It wasn't a power surge. It was something alive. The ship's walls groaned as if they were in pain. The air thickened, like something unseen was pressing against them. Zurich stumbled back. Abort mission. Get them out of there. No response. The warship's emergency lights flashed red. The cloaking device failed. The ship was now visible to all of Earth. Then the internal speakers crackled. A deep, unfamiliar voice spoke. You should not have come. And then, silence. The Xilarian strike team was never seen again. The truth begins to unfold. Back on Xilarian Prime, the High Council received their last transmission. One word. One message. Awakening. The meaning was clear. The humans were waking up, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The missing squad and the awakening. There is a sound that no warship should ever make. It is not the hum of failing engines or the static of broken communications. It is silence. The Xilarian dreadnought, Veilborn, hovered above Earth, waiting for a response from its stealth team. But the comms were dead. No distress signals. No emergency beacons. Nothing. Commander Zirek stood on the command deck, staring at the screens. His claws tapped against the metal railing, his skin cold with unease. The strike team had entered Earth's atmosphere 6 hours ago. They had reported securing the human 5 minutes later. And then, they vanished. No bodies, no wreckage, just emptiness. Chancellor Varek's voice echoed through the ship's speakers. Commander Zirek, we have waited long enough. Zirek turned sharply. Sir, I request more time. Something is wrong. Varek's hologram flickered, his 6 glowing eyes narrowing. Yes, something is very wrong. A full strike team, armed with the best technology in the Empire, does not simply disappear. We must assume they have been compromised. Zirek clenched his fists. Sir, this doesn't make sense. The humans were asleep. There was no sign of resistance. No weapons fired. Varek's voice was calm. And yet, they are gone. A moment of silence. Then the order came. Send the warship. Retrieve the missing squad. If necessary, burn everything. A ghost ship in orbit. The Veilborn moved slowly toward Earth, its massive hull dark against the stars. A crew of thousands prepared for planetary descent, their weapons primed. Then a blip appeared on the sensors. Zyrek's heart stopped. A ship was floating just beyond Earth's orbit, not moving. No energy readings. Dead. It was the Xilarian stealth vessel, the missing squad ship. And yet, something was wrong. The ship's hull was perfectly intact, no signs of damage. But its beacon, its power source, even its emergency lights, all dead. It was as if something had drained it completely. Prepare a boarding team, Zyrek ordered. We're going in. The warship's docking bay opened, and a smaller recovery vessel launched toward the silent ship. Zirek and his team docked carefully, their weapons raised. As soon as the airlock hissed open, they felt it. The air was thick, not with gas, not with radiation, but with something invisible. A presence. The ship's corridors were dark, silent. Not even the usual hum of machinery remained. Then they saw them. The strike team. Or rather, what was left of them. Their bodies were frozen mid-movement, one reaching for his communicator, another halfway through a step. Their eyes were open, but their pupils were completely white, as if their minds had been wiped clean. A deep dread settled in Zyrek's chest. This is not war, he whispered. This is something else. A voice crackled through their comms. Why are you here? Zirek froze. The voice was not from the ship. It was inside his mind. His crew backed away, panic in their glowing eyes. Who said that? No response. Then, at the end of the hallway, a door slid open. Inside, on a medical table, a human lay sleeping. Zirek swallowed. He had seen horror before. He had fought in wars. But nothing compared to this moment. The human's eyes snapped open. Every screen in the ship exploded into static. The awakening begins. Back on the Veilborn, alarms started blaring. Chancellor Varek's voice echoed through the ship. "Report. What is happening?" No one answered, because every soldier on the Veilborn stopped moving. They stood frozen, their minds blank, as if something had reached into their skulls and switched them off. Except for one, Zurich. He stood alone in the dark ship, staring at the now awake human. The human tilted his head, his expression calm. "You should not have come." Zurich raised his weapon. His hands shook. The human simply blinked. And the warship, the mighty Veilborn, the pride of the Xelarian fleet, began falling from the sky. Humanity's true power. There was no explosion, no fire, no warning. One moment, the Veilborn, a warship large enough to block out the stars, hovered above Earth. The next, it was falling. Not crashing, not burning. Falling. As if the universe itself had forgotten how gravity worked. Inside the ship, Commander Zurich was the only one still awake. His crew stood frozen. Not dead, not unconscious, just empty. Their glowing eyes were vacant, their mouths slightly open as if caught mid-breath. The only sound was the distant echo of alarms, warning of the ship's uncontrolled descent. And then, in the silence, footsteps. Zurich turned slowly. The human was awake. He walked down the dark corridor without urgency, his expression calm. The warship trembled around him, as if even the metal sensed his presence. Zurich raised his weapon. His hand shook. "What did you do?" The human stopped. His eyes, too bright, too deep, too knowing, studied Zurich as if seeing something beyond flesh and bone. "I woke up," he said. Zurich clenched his jaw. "This isn't possible." The human smiled. That's what the others thought. The Veilborn's lights flickered. For a split second, the entire ship was drenched in darkness. When the lights returned, the human was standing right in front of Zurich. Zurich's breath caught. He hadn't moved. No one could move that fast. The human leaned in slightly. "Tell me, Commander, have you ever wondered why we sleep?" Zurich didn't answer. The human chuckled softly. "Other species think it's a weakness. That shutting down for hours makes us vulnerable. That we are just like them. Creatures that need rest." His eyes darkened. "We are not like them." The ship shuddered violently, metal groaning like a wounded beast. Zurich's heart pounded. "What are you?" The human exhaled, as if the question amused him. "I am what happens when you let a species evolve in their dreams." He raised a hand. Instantly, the frozen soldiers around them collapsed to the floor, unconscious. And for the first time, Zurich felt it. A weight in the air, a force pressing against his mind, his bones, his very existence. It wasn't telekinesis. It wasn't energy manipulation. It was something deeper. Like the laws of reality themselves were bending around the human. "You wanted to study us," the human said softly. "You took our people. You feared what you didn't understand." He took a step forward. Zurich couldn't move. His limbs refused to obey. "But it's too late," the human whispered. "You woke us up." He tilted his head slightly. And the Veilborn stopped falling. Not gradually, not with effort. It just stopped. Suspended miles above Earth, as if gravity itself had given up. The alarms went silent. The power flickered. The laws of physics unraveled. And then, a single pulse of energy rippled outward. The entire warship disintegrated into a fine silver dust. Zurich didn't scream. There was no time. There was only the vast emptiness of space, and the sound of the human's voice inside his mind. "You should have let us sleep." The universe trembles. Across the galaxy, sensors blinked. Ships malfunctioned. Empires noticed something strange. Somewhere, deep in the void, a Xelarian scientist stared at a screen in horror. It showed a map of the entire Milky Way, and on that map, tiny red dots began appearing. One by one. Thousands. Millions. Billions. Every red dot marked a human waking up. The scientist's hands shook. His voice barely escaped his lips. They're awake, and nothing would ever be the same again. The universe reacts. The first sign was silence. Not the peaceful kind. Not the kind that comes after a battle or before a storm. This was the silence of a galaxy holding its breath. Across countless worlds, leaders of empires, warlords of dying civilizations, and scholars of forbidden knowledge stared at their screens in horror. The Solarian Empire's greatest warship, Veilborn, was gone. Not destroyed. Not captured. Gone. Every single soldier on board vanished. And the only thing left in its place, a single human, awake. The Galactic Council meets in fear. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had not been this full in centuries. Representatives from over 500 star systems had gathered, some appearing as holograms, others in person, their voices rising in panic. They erased an entire warship. Our spies report that humans are waking up across every known colony. They never needed weapons. Their minds are the weapons. A deep metallic voice cut through the noise. Chancellor Varric. He stood at the center of the council, his towering figure radiating authority. Enough, he said. The room fell silent. Varric's eyes glowed faintly as he spoke. We thought we understood them. We believed they were like us. Limited, predictable. But we were wrong. He gestured to a holographic map of the galaxy. Across the entire Milky Way, red dots pulsed like a spreading infection. Every single one of these, he said, his voice low, is a human who has woken up. The council watched in horror as more dots appeared. Thousands, millions, billions. The realization settled over them like a shadow. It was too late. The last warning. On a remote Solarian moon, a research team scrambled to leave. They had been studying humans for years, keeping them in sleeping pods, trying to understand their strange biology. Now, every single pod was empty. The lead scientist, trembling, tried to send a distress signal. This is Research Outpost Theta 9. The humans. They're gone. The signal cut to static. The stars above flickered. Then, from the darkness, they came. Not in ships, not in armor. Just humans. Floating in the void, eyes glowing, awake. The lead scientist took a step back, terror flooding his veins. He tried to scream, but sound itself vanished. And then so did he. The final decision. Back at the Galactic Council, panic turned to desperation. Varric turned to his advisors. His voice was cold, final. There is only one solution. A silence heavier than gravity fell over the room. The meaning was clear. Extermination. A full-scale war. The combined forces of the entire galactic armada. Every weapon, every fleet, every superweapon. All of it launched against Earth. If they acted fast, if they struck before every last human woke up, maybe, just maybe, they could survive. Varric turned to the council. Are we agreed? One by one, the leaders nodded. The order was given. The war had begun. Earth responds. But humans, they had already seen this coming. A deep, rumbling voice echoed across the stars. A message sent without technology, without ships, without words. It was sent directly into the minds of every living being in the galaxy. It spoke with one voice. We warned you. And then the stars began to flicker. One by one, like something vast was waking up beneath them. The final stand. There was no declaration of war, no ultimatums, no threats. The attack began without a sound. The combined might of the entire galactic armada, over 100,000 warships, from the most advanced civilizations in the universe, descended upon Earth in a perfect, coordinated strike. Weapons capable of shattering moons charged their cores. Star-destroying cannons took aim. Eye-controlled drones blotted out the sun. From orbit, it seemed like a guaranteed victory. Earth was small, primitive, It had no planetary shields, no massive defense fleet, no warning systems powerful enough to stop the unstoppable. The commanders of the attacking fleets did not expect resistance. They expected annihilation. They expected silence. They were wrong. Because Earth did not fight back. It simply woke up. The fall of the First Fleet. It started slowly. The first warship lost power. Its systems failed, engines shutting down all at once. Then another. Then 100 more. Entire battle groups suddenly froze in place, drifting in orbit like empty husks. The admiral screamed orders. Engage emergency power. Fire now. Fire everything. But the weapons didn't fire. The engines didn't restart. And then, the screaming stopped. Every soldier, every pilot, every being aboard the attacking fleet fell silent. Their minds went blank. Not dead. Not unconscious. Frozen. As if time itself had refused to move forward. In the command center of the Xilarian flagship, Chancellor Varric stood alone. He watched in horror as the once mighty armada, his fleet, his power, his entire legacy, stood still in the black void of space. And below, on Earth, humans began to rise. The awakening completes. Across the world, every sleeping human opened their eyes at once. Not just the ones on Earth. Not just the ones in colonies. All of them. From hidden bunkers in deep space, from forgotten exile planets, from the ruins of ancient battlefields. Billions of humans woke up, and with them, the universe itself seemed to shift. The laws of reality trembled. Gravity twisted. Time became fluid. The galaxy's most powerful weapons, the ones meant to erase Earth in an instant, began turning to dust before they could fire. The humans did not attack. They did not launch counterstrikes. They simply looked upward. And the moment they did, the invading armada vanished. Not destroyed, not vaporized. Simply gone, like they had never existed at all. The last message. Only one ship remained. Varric's flagship, floating alone in the black sea of space. He was the last survivor. The only one left to witness the end of an era. A voice, human, but more, spoke inside his mind. You never understood. Varric couldn't breathe. We were never your enemy. His body felt weightless. Reality itself was slipping through his fingers. You came to destroy us, fearing what we would become. The stars around him dimmed. But we did not evolve to conquer. Varric's heart pounded. He fell to his knees, his breath shaking. We evolved to leave. He tried to scream, tried to beg, tried to move. But then, he too was gone. And all that remained of the greatest war the galaxy had ever seen was an empty sky and a planet finally, truly awake. The new era. For the first time in recorded history, the universe felt small. The great empires, once unchallenged, had collapsed without a single battle. The Xilarian fleets were gone. The warlords of the outer systems had vanished. The towering armadas that once cast shadows over planets had turned to dust. The war had ended before it had truly begun, and at the center of it all stood humanity. But they did not celebrate. They did not claim thrones, burn cities, or demand surrender. They simply looked to the stars, because this was never about war. This was about leaving. A universe without chains. In the days that followed, the last remaining leaders of the galaxy gathered at the ruins of the Galactic Council. They expected demands. They expected punishment. But the humans had already moved on. Xilaric, once a loyal commander of the Xilarian Empire, was one of the few who remained. He stood before Earth's last message, etched into the shattered halls of the council chamber. It was not a declaration of victory. It was not a warning. It was a farewell. We were never asleep. We were waiting. And now, it is time to go. No armies, no leaders, no ships in the sky. Humanity was disappearing. One by one, their cities emptied. Their voices faded. Their presence in the galaxy grew thinner, like shadows dissolving in the light. No one knew where they were going. Some believed they had stepped into another dimension, one beyond mortal comprehension. Others believed they had become something else entirely. But Zurich, he stood beneath the endless sky, watching the last of them rise into the stars. And for the first time, he understood. The last human. On the edge of the known galaxy, a lone figure stood upon the shattered remains of an abandoned moon. Captain Rylan. The first to wake. The last to leave. He turned, looking at the empty universe one final time. The wars, the fear, the endless cycle of destruction. It was over. His people had moved beyond it. He exhaled. The void around him bent slightly, as if reality itself was reshaping. Then, with nothing but a whisper of light, he was gone. And humanity. Humanity was legend. A story told in the dark, a mystery that haunted the most powerful minds in the galaxy. Because in the end, they had not conquered. They had not destroyed. They had simply outgrown it all.